All right. Yeah, let's start.
Okay.
I have to admit, I skipped over the call to order part.
That's all right.
Reading everything else.
I just want to indicate who's present. We have Tad Dockery, Lisa Hanairo, Kirsten Kleckner. I don't see Ken Marcourt. Ken, are you here? And I think he indicated, I don't remember if he indicated if he could be present or not, but he's not present. Dale Rhodes, Alder John Schaefer is not present. Jim Schutz is present. Tom Yost, Carrie Scheffner. So absent, I have Ken Marcourt, John Schaefer, and Zoe Van Nest, who's our new youth representative. She indicated to me right before the meeting that she was not available. Something came up. So you have a quorum and you can proceed with election of the committee chairperson.
All right. Do we have any nominations for committee chair?
We got to go through this again because last time's meeting was not official, just so everyone knows.
This is Kirsten Kleckner. I'd like to nominate Tad.
Second.
Who?
Ms. Dale, second.
Thank you. And you're supposed to ask if there's any other nominations, Tad.
Right. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, by unanimous consent, that makes Tad Dockery the chair of the committee. Do we have any nominations for vice chairperson? Remember, we can nominate people who aren't here.
Well, this is Lisa Hanairo. I'll nominate my colleague John Schaefer to be the vice chair.
This is Kirsten. I second that.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, by unanimous consent, we've elected John Schaefer as our vice chair. All right, with that out of the way, we've received the minutes, gone over them. Are there any corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing no corrections to the minutes, they stand as approved. Move on to item 1, bruising. All right, Red Tail Ridge, phase 1. Mark and Wade?
Yeah, and I just want to note that Ken Marcourt is present. So he's joined, so we have 8 present now. Welcome, Ken. We are joined also by Chad Wibben, who's the developer for Red Tail Ridge, along with Wade Wise, Wiser Engineering. And just by way of background, the reason this is on the agenda is because the Public Works Committee has been reviewing plans that will lead to approval of the specific implementation plan and specifically the final plat, the city developer agreement. They've been preparing these reviewing these plans. At the meeting this past Monday, they discussed various issues that pertain to the purview of this committee. And so that's why I prepared this memo on Tuesday and sent it out to you with a delayed packet on Tuesday so that you would have this all in one place. So I guess I won't read the memo here, but I would turn it over to you, Tad, if you have a structure for how you'd like to proceed. Otherwise, inviting the developer to, well, however you want to proceed with this, then it's up to you. But you're asked to provide feedback on these issues, the raised crosswalk, for example.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to hear from the developer.
You bet. So I'll jump in right away unless Chad, you want to go first, but
I'll give you kind of a rundown. Thank you for your time tonight. I'll give you kind of a rundown of where we're at with the plans and what we're proposing for the real topic at hand, how the pedestrian bike crossings and connectivity of this first phase plat makes sense. Is everybody familiar with Red Tail Ridge? I mean, do we need an overview of what the project is?
That's a good point. You know, I should have included an overall map. So for anybody who's new, this is north of the city, east of between High Road and Pheasant Branch Road, and I think our 2 new members are aware of that. So go ahead, Wade. Okay,
yeah, and does it help, Mark, if I share my screen?
Sure, if you want to do that, that'd be
yep.
That would make it easier.
I think the host has to enable me.
Yep.
And sorry, I just want to clarify one thing. Just before you present, Wade, I believe it was just, is it just the one item, the raised crosswalks, that this committee is commenting on? Can we just clarify that piece before we proceed?
Yeah, I believe, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but the deferral made by Public Works Committee was the crosswalks and pedestrian connectivity along Bellefontaine.
That is true, but there's no reason why the committee can't and shouldn't weigh in on other items. And I talked with Wade about this on Tuesday and with Chad to some degree. You know, there's if you wish to comment on other aspects of the plan, you know, you're welcome to. But if you want to focus on the raised crosswalks, that's perfectly fine as well. And I would just add that, Carrie, it was hard to hear you just now.
Oh, okay.
So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, oops, I don't think I've got the right screen here. Is everybody seeing my screen with the overall colored graphic?
Yep, and that's helpful.
Okay, awesome. So this is Red Hill Ridge in a full preliminary plat version, if you will. It's 128 acres. The development we're proposing for phase 1 in front of you tonight is really kind of this west 40. This is the first initial phase. And as Mark alluded to, we're happy to discuss anything within this 40, but I think to start, the focus will be on Bellefontaine as it progresses from what is existing High Road and east into the development as the main entry for the project. So with that, I have a zoom in here. Now I've seen this plan so many times. Slow me down if I'm going too fast or it's not clear, but this is an overview of the grading plan for the phase 1 project. So you can again see that it's this west 40 acres. The rest of the development is over here to the east. What we're attempting to do and what we did at the Public Works Committee and behind the scenes with Mark is we're attempting to make, you know, as an initial pass here, this bike pedestrian path. There is a path that runs along High Road, north-south direction. We got feedback at the Public Works Committee that needs to be installed with this phase of the project. So we've incorporated that into the plan. And there's also the same 10-foot bike pedestrian path that progresses east along the south right-of-way here of Bellefontaine all the way to our plat limit, our phase 1 limit in this location. The current design that we have in front of you, and we think is pretty robust, is providing for special consideration of bike and pedestrian crossings in these locations. And I'll kind of circle them just so you can see here. This location, this location, this location crossing, and then recently added out of Monday night, this one crossing Bellefontaine again. Okay, so I said special consideration. What does that mean? What does this look like? These have been designed in coordination with Public Works as kind of a tabletop, pedestrian friendly, and I'll show you a picture of what they look like. They are consistent with what we've worked through with City on a standard detail for these. And if you can see my screen, are you seeing the pictures right now from an email I have here? No? Let me try this again.
There you go.
Now you see them. Okay, so this is the design intent, right? We are basically, as you drive, this cross section is probably best. As you drive, you basically approach a ramp if you will, that's 3 inches in height, brings us up to this tabletop for the 10-foot bike ped crossing, and then back down a ramp. Okay, so that's the idea here. Is this is an example Mark had provided us that's in the city of Madison. It's well received in the city of Madison for this purpose. So we implemented this into our plan. That's the proposal that we have in front of you for these 4. You're seeing, I'm sorry, you see my screen again with the circles?
And for the committee's benefit, this crossing is located along the Captain City Trail, parallel to Eastwood, as you approach the Atwood neighborhood, Eastwood at Russell Street.
So at Public Works, what we heard was we heard some back and forth, right? We heard some discussion. There are some folks that feel this is maybe impactful for the traveling public, maybe a maintenance concern. Certainly understand the need and the desire for ped bikes safety. So ultimately they deferred to you. This is a direction, I guess, if you will, that we're looking to implement on our project plan. I will say behind the scenes, we've come up with a couple of other alternatives with Mark. And I'll focus in the next part of this discussion is this intersection with Waxwing Way and Bellefontaine. There will be a community center in this location. And this is kind of maybe a main pedestrian or a main intersection that's part of our development. So we haven't necessarily dialed in what this crossing would be per se, because we're trying to also hear others' concerns about free-flowing traffic and things like that. But perhaps a compromise that we're talking about is implementing yet another one of these raised tabletop crossings in this location that's currently not part of the plans to make this connectivity to the community center and tie the less dense housing in with these 3 lots on the west side or more dense housing. So generally we're looking for your feedback, right? This is what we have currently in front of you is these tabletop crossings, and any feedback or direction you might want to offer us as relates to this Waxwing Way and Bellefontaine intersection.
This is Kirsten, and I think the biggest concern is going to be coming off of High Point Road. We need to slow traffic coming down and into the neighborhood if the bike lane will be extended that far, which I certainly hope it is in phase 1. Anything coming off of a major road, traffic has to be slowed down. People are going to be coming home from work and trying to take that corner at 30 miles an hour. So that would be a must. And then Waxwing and Bellefontaine. I don't know if we can do traffic calming. Could we do a traffic, like the mini traffic circles where you have something in the middle to slow traffic down, since the community center is going to be right there?
I think, I think again, the intent for us is, if I can get this email back up again.
And the other idea that we talked about is having the entire intersection be raised as an idea.
Yeah, so Kirsten, to your comment about traffic calming, that is the point of these ramps that lead up to this. It almost acts as a speed hump, okay? And that is right now implemented in the design here off High Road to address that concern, okay?
Yeah,
that
also would be there for sure.
It's also over here at Rough Road at the end of our project. And what I'm hearing is that probably consideration here at Waxwing for the same.
Gary?
I was wondering if it would be helpful to indicate where the stop signs are as well. Because I know that was brought up at Public Works, that a few members thought maybe the raised crosswalks weren't needed because there were stop signs. I like the idea of the raised crosswalks where you have them, and then also then maybe the addition, I don't know about that, but just point out the stop signs. I think that might be helpful as well.
Sure. So the stop sign, the collector, if you will, is Bellefontaine Boulevard. So the stop signs, I'm sorry, at High Road This is a stop sign, stop condition. High road is the through road. So as you come westbound, you're at a stop condition. Inside of our development, Bellefontaine dominates, right? So Waxwing Way, north and south are in a stop condition, and the through traffic is on Bellefontaine. And that's consistent down here with Ruffed Road as well. So this intersection has free-flowing east-west traffic, but stop condition north-south. That helps.
Lisa?
Yeah, thanks. I love the idea of having either the raised crosswalk or the entire raised intersection. Mark, is it safe to assume that you provided pictures from Madison because we don't have anything like this in Middleton?
I provided the raised crosswalk from Madison. We do have an example in, someone pointed this out to me and I'm trying to remember where we essentially don't have this example in Middleton. So
yeah. So I think this is a great opportunity to implement our complete streets policy and really try to build in better infrastructure for bikes and pedestrians. I mean, I just imagine what this road would look like if we built it the same way every other road is built versus a road that very intentionally has these, these walkways and the bike path that will continue in a way that slows the traffic down and calls drivers' attention to the fact that more than cars use the roadway. And I think it's just a great idea. I like Kirsten's bringing up of the concern about people turning off of High Road. I'm wondering what kind of signage can be put there, because it seems to me like if I lived in this neighborhood or were cutting through it and I made a left turn and came upon a raised crosswalk, that would happen once, going 30 miles per hour. And after that, I'd remember, oh, it's there, I gotta slow down. But I think, signage, maybe green paint, I don't know, something to market, I think would be a good idea. Thanks.
Other comments?
if I may make an observation, listening to the Public Works discussion on Monday and the concern about that Carrie just articulated, it occurs to me that this is no different having a raised crosswalk right at an intersection than any driveway that people pull into. So if you're pulling into, the Goodwill store, for example, you mount, when you turn off Century Avenue, you're turning right into a ramp that goes over the path that's alongside the Goodwill store. It's no different. So the key is how it's designed in terms of, maybe you use the concrete or a color, as was just mentioned. This just does not seem to me to be a new idea. So the raised intersection idea, which would be the entire intersection itself, I guess I was curious if there was, if Wade, if you had given that any thought, if that was feasible.
Yeah, so I think the entire, when you're talking about an entire raised intersection, we're focusing in on this intersection of Waxwing and Bellefontaine. Yeah. So our only concern with that, Mark, would be the treatment of the curb head. In a total raised intersection, we've seen it done two different ways. One without a curb head, right? Because you don't have that 6 inches anymore that we're talking about. This is raised up to the top of the back of curb, right? Basically. And that creates, probably an unsafe viewed condition as it relates to vehicles turning left, right, trucks, things like that, right? There's not that protective curb for you. Okay, and the other thing that you could do is you could still pour the curb head, but leave the gap 6 inches below. That's what we've seen as well. I don't know that aesthetically that doesn't accomplish a lot, right? You've got this curb head that's prone to getting nipped off with a plow truck and things like that. So I don't know that a fully raised intersection is maybe what we're trying to shoot for here. I also would like to add that I feel like we're pretty set on this speed hump tabletop crossing, if you will, as a traffic calming measure, and maintaining consistency does a lot for a driver, right? So I'm almost lobbying for, Mark, if we're going to do anything here, almost another tabletop here, just it's block consistent, right? Everybody knows when you get from this block to this block, you've got that same speed hump, and you're continuing that traffic calming nature on. I almost feel like it might be a better fit than a raised intersection here.
So I would tend to prefer the raised intersection, specifically because it's a crucial intersection right in front of the community center. It helps to tie all four corners, if you will, in together, and it still provides the traffic calming. I think I'm more for the 6-inch condition as well. I work in the Historical Society building right across from Memorial Union down on campus. There is a large raised intersection there. It's flush with the curb. Trucks mount the 6-inch curb further down all the time. They're doing it slowly. They're there for deliveries and that kind of thing, but I personally do not find that 6-inch curb to be all that protective. So the difference in the height doesn't seem to, the fact that you have a vertical deflection at all helps display. Also, if we focus on like different color treatments of that raised table, plus vertical elements to help tie in, vertical visual elements primarily to tie in with that community center, that would create many of the conditions for people to slow down, look around, and pay attention, because it looks like a place where they need to do that.
Where's the intersection on campus?
It's
I'm zooming in.
Langdon.
Right.
It's right between the University Mall and Memorial Union.
Oh, okay. But it's not a four-way intersection. It's the
No, it's not a four-way intersection.
Got it. I thought that's what we meant.
Yeah, I think of that. I know that spot well because my husband works in the union, and I think of that as just a really large raised crosswalk.
Carrie?
But I see your point.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of a raised intersection. I just don't know if it's best suited here, just because of kind of what the engineer was saying, Wade, that there's like this kind of consistency and flow. I definitely think that something should be at that intersection, like another tabletop crosswalk that you were kind of circling before, Wade, at that location. I think that should definitely be a minimal. We should do that. I'm just not sure if the raised intersection here, I don't know, like, are we anticipating high pedestrian traffic? Because I think it's probably most advantages for that, right? Like where there's a lot of activity. And I'm not as familiar with the disadvantages, but I do wonder if it would, I would have to do some more research on like what are the potential disadvantages of a tabletop intersection.
I would tend to be more in favor of the raised crosswalks, because if I understand this right, if you have a raised intersection, you go up the ramp on one side, then you have an extended period or extended distance before you go down the other side. I think that's gearing more toward the motorist than to the bicyclist or pedestrian.
Jim, the pedestrians and cyclists would already be at the level. Oh, Jim.
So right, they're already at that level.
Right.
But why are you giving the drivers the longer distance rather than going up a hump and down a hump?
I agree, Jim. I wonder if it would be less effective for speed reduction.
Right, that's what I was really getting at.
Yeah.
Is would they be able, if you have a longer distance, would you be as concerned about maintaining your speed or reducing your speed?
Dale?
So I kind of agree with Wade that consistency down that whole corridor. So that as they come to every intersection, they're going to have that on one side or the other.
And that was my other point that I was thinking of, is I agree, whatever you decide, I think for this, it would be ideal to have the same choice for all the intersections and not designing one for one intersection, designing one for another one.
I would note you could do, you could still use color treatments without a raised intersection. You know, there are ways to do that, or different texture without raising. So there's different variations here. But the key tonight is to provide the feedback so that it informs how the plat gets finalized. And this issue specifically isn't plat related as much. But this was very good feedback. Chad is wanting to.
Yeah. Chad?
Yeah, hi, everyone. If I can just add my 2 cents quickly, I won't take much of your time. I really do like the consistency of the raised crosswalks as opposed to the tabletop intersection. And I also, the tabletop intersection does bring with it a lot of other issues that Wade can dive into if you want him to, as far as K values and other design factors that are affected by that. But I could really see Bellefontaine, as we go into the future, there'll be more of these intersections, and similar raised crosswalks would provide consistency a longer ways than just the phase we're looking at right now. Thank you.
Do we need a motion on this?
Yeah,
item?
it would be helpful. I was just going to suggest that.
I'd like to make a motion then. I would move that we go with the option of raised crosswalks, and regardless of whatever the design is, that the design is consistent across all the throughout the each of the crosswalks.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Jim, on that motion? Does that mean then we would add a raised crosswalk? Yeah, thank you, Wade, there only, or would there be more?
There'd be a raised, we were talking about 4 intersections here, or 4 potential ones. Was that correct?
The design right now has the 4 circled in red. We were talking about adding the 5th in this location.
Okay. Right.
May I make a suggestion for the motion? Maybe Wade, or who's got control? Mark, could you circle in red the 5th location? And then maybe Jim, you could just reference the 5 locations identified on the drawing.
Wade, you might want to zoom out just a hair. Can't see it all. There you go.
And
Okay,
as a reminder, go ahead.
My recommendation or motion was that it would apply, whatever choice we make would apply to all 5 crosswalks. and that my recommendation, the motion, was that we go with a raised crosswalk.
So the motion I'm hearing, it hasn't been seconded yet, but what I'm hearing for the minutes is to endorse the raised crosswalk approach with a consistent design at 5 intersections, or in 5 locations as shown on the map. Essentially, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that. This is Lisa.
And I simply wanted to add that as a reminder to everybody that your camera needs to be on to be counted for quorum and for voting.
All right, we have a motion to as formulated in the minutes that Mark just heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. All right, moving on to next item of business, North Mendota Trail.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Wade.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, guys. Yep. Let me go back to. There we go.
Mark, I wonder
Yeah.
if Tom's camera is on, but I don't think it's. Does it
heard that too.
Okay.
I heard his. There it is. Okay.
Sorry, I had it on the wrong direction.
All right. Thank you. I'm not sharing anything right now. Here we go. So the next item is the North Mendota Trail. We've got several things to discuss here. Let's see. I went too far. All right, here we go. So we have made a lot of progress since you were last briefed on this. Just so everyone knows, the segment that we're talking about right now is the east segment, constructed from Highland Way east to the city limits. Unfortunately, there was a significant rainfall a month ago that caused some damage, or actually it was in early July, that caused some damage that has been cleaned up. We are in the process of working with both KL Engineering, our design and construction engineer, as well as the contractor Badgerland, to determine responsibilities and potential change orders. There's a issue with the inlet, or with the Dollar General parking lot, where there was previously a drainage area, a rock, I don't know what it's called, but there's a structure there that was basically a pile of rocks that helped address the water that runs off the parking lot, and those weren't sufficiently in place for this design. So with this new project, so as a result, significant water came down here and caused this damage to the new surface. So that's got to be addressed. We're in the process of working on that. But otherwise, the project is open. Happy to report we basically was passable in mid-June. There's one segment that remains undone that was intended to be done, and that is right here at Branch Street. There's I think it's about 80 feet, if I remember right, that wasn't paved. Maybe it's 100 feet. And when I discovered that the day it was being paved, I was surprised that this wasn't being paved, and was advised that it was consistent with the plans that had been approved by the city. And to my surprise, that was an accurate statement. So I delved into why that happened, and from what I could piece together, because the plans were over 3 years old, the reason why the pavement section had stopped here is because there was a question at the time about whether we would go further west with the path, as part of this project, because the city was interested in developing a trailhead by the Stagecoach Apartments. But the second complicating factor was that this parcel, which is probably hard for you to see where I'm pointing, but this where the peach color or orange color is shown, that actually was county-owned land at the time that the project was bid. And so the city did not feel like we should go across it, pave it before it was in our ownership. And it took the county numerous months, if not almost a year, for that transaction to occur, that it's now city-owned land. So I think it was just an oversight. The good news I have to report is that our city street crew has offered to take on this work. It is not something that we are going to have to, they feel they can do this work in-house. So that's substantially cheaper. A couple $1,000s was the estimate. I mean, I don't have an exact estimate, it was just ballpark. So they plan to do this probably in September when their schedule permits. What else did I have on this? Oh, in May, I sent this letter, which was intended to, they went to the 18 property owners between the two Highland Way intersections, basically formally introducing the concept of, hey, can you work with us, and would you be willing to work with us to grant an access easement so that we can fill in what's now our missing link between the two Highland Ways. That has resulted in less than half the property owners verbally or via email indicating consent to that idea. I've talked to about half of them. 5 or 6 have said, "Oh, we love the idea. We'd be happy to take you up on that and work with you on that." 2 or 3 had questions, and then about 9 I've not heard from. I've been really busy with other things, so I've not followed up in this letter, but this will be a long process. As most of you know, the city is unable to use eminent domain authority to acquire land for pedestrian and bicycle purposes. I see Kirsten has a question. Tad, if you want to make the answer.
Yes, regarding the letter sent out, I'm curious why it wasn't put in there that, again, we're trying to sell this path to the property owners. And on our infrastructure ride, I brought up the fact that it raises property value, 5 to 7%. I'm curious why that wasn't included in the letter, because that's something, Mark, that you and I have spoken about many times as a selling point, not just the plowing.
I know we've talked about that. I don't know that there's consensus in the community that it would raise property values, because for some people, they have significant trees that are bordering their property that provide shade and southern exposure. So I felt uncomfortable getting into that sort of issue that could be very personal for an individual property owner in terms of the perception of what the value would be. I just felt like it was introducing room for a debate that might be necessary to have, or certainly willing to have, but I didn't think it was helpful for the letter. So,
Lisa?
Thanks. I shared Kirsten's concern, and I think if you have to send another letter out, I think it's worth mentioning what she just raised, and I think I would totally lead with the benefits and the good neighborliness of people who live in Middleton. I'm wondering, has Alder Dave Lorman reached out to these folks? Because if this were in my district, I would be making phone calls and going door to door to talk to people, and maybe even hosting a neighborhood meeting so that we could answer questions and just emphasize we want to make this work, and we'll do what you all need us to do to make this work.
I did meet with Dave Lorman with one of the property owners, maybe it was even 2. At their request, they wanted to have an on-site meeting, which I had indicated was happy to do. And so Alder Lorman joined us for that. I'm not aware of any other discussions he's had on this topic. I would also add this letter was, something that was drafted sort of by a group of us. I did the first draft by the staff, so the kind of the language and phrasing evolved based on a group effort, group review. So anyway, this was a couple months ago now. There's other hands up now.
Yeah, Carrie first.
Yeah, I might have missed this. Do we pay them for this easement?
We have not been paying adjoining property owners for the easement. We have been providing a payment for impacts to landscaping. So we've come up with the value of landscaping, 2.5 times value, and cutting a check essentially so that they could then hire a landscaper on their own after the project's done. So for example, Rolling Hill Condos is going to be putting up a fence. They are doing that with funds that we provided. It's up to them. We're not managing that project. They use the landscaper of their choice. So that is how we, from the very beginning, have been providing compensation, but it's not tied to evaluation.
Yeah, maybe that would be good to include in the letter too. I think that, you know, just to give them assurance that it's not really going to impact them majorly, right? Because they could use money to re-landscape. Or, and the other thing I was wondering, it does say, okay, six feet. Okay.
So the landscaping, the payment concept was part of the letter.
Kirsten again?
Yes, I am very happy. Once again, I'll volunteer myself to go door to door with Alder Lorman. That is my district. It is a route I take 2 to 4 times a day. And I am very happy to chat with homeowners, since I was also at the condo meeting during the first segment being placed in just west of there.
Okay, so that's an update on that. Got to look at the agenda to make sure. Keep scrolling back and forth. Oh, the last one is wayfinding signs. So the last task that I have before me with this project is at the request of the county as a condition of getting the grant. We have, they are asking that we put in place wayfinding signs designed to the county standard. And these are pictures I took on a bike ride a few weeks ago. I'm trying to figure out how to blow this up. So it's an email. There we go. So this is on the Cap City Trail near Lucier Heritage Center. So anyway, the point is they have a standard design, and I'm going to be putting together a plan for this. I've mentioned this in the past. I have not made time yet to develop the plan, but I would actually welcome, and Kirsten in particular, your help and anybody else who wants your guidance on this. I have met with the Madison Sign Shop, from whom we would likely order the signs. They work for other communities as well, so I did have a meeting with them and have an example of a sign in my office. So that is something I have to do before the end of the year to have these installed. So it's something I was going to do next month. Anybody want to help me with that? Okay, I see a hand up.
that was an unfortunately timed hand raising. I was not volunteering.
Oh, okay.
No, but I did want to ask a question about this. How will we pay for this? And I think I had emailed to you, Mark, the Dane County Cities and Villages Association shared information on the park and ride grants that are available, and wayfinding signs and plans are part of that.
This is paid for. This is paid for already because the county gave us the grant of $1 million, and we haven't spent all that yet. So there's room in the budget, if you will. There's room with the grant that we already have to acquire these signs. And furthermore, I asked them for permission to acquire the signs, to develop and design and deploy these signs for the entire North Mendota Trail, not just the east segment, and they consented to that. I asked them that at the time of when we executed the grant agreement.
That's great. Okay, yep. That's all I had on this. I had another question, but I'll wait till others have had a chance.
Mark, what kind of help are you looking for on these signs exactly?
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up with what I think the signs, how they should read and where they're placed. And I just want to get the experience of a couple. You know, I've got my ideas for it. It's not a hard and fast rule, but you know, roughly, ultimately, this is a springboard for other trail signage in the city. So I want to make sure we do this right and not just piecemeal. So I think I was envisioning kind of a informal work group, you know, a couple people just having a meeting to brainstorm what we want each sign to say, what destinations, where they're placed. I've got several ideas and I can put together a plan, and I was going to, but I just wanted to run it by a couple people who are active path users. So, okay, you don't have to. I mean, I know that Kirsten's interested, and anybody else, you know, if you are, just follow up with me individually. You don't have to decide this.
Right. Next item.
Yep.
The bus.
Well, let's check in with a couple people who are leaving. So what?
Okay.
If that's all right with you, Ted.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that.
So, Kirsten, you said you had to leave at, well, one of you's leaving at 6 and one's at 6:30, right?
Correct. I have to leave at 6.
Okay. Which item? Is there a particular item that you wanted to be part of, Carrie?
I would just like to voice my support for the renewing the bicycle friendly community status, number 7.
Tad,
I think that's important for the city to renew that status.
Tad, do you want to go to that item next?
Yeah, we can jump there.
Okay. So this is an annual application process. Actually, it used to be twice a year. It's being converted to an annual process. The next deadline is just a few weeks away, and increasingly, I think it's not going to be practical to get an application turned in by then, just because of workload. But it's the type of thing that I was hoping to get some help with from a couple volunteers too, because it's a very lengthy, extensive application process. We are one of several communities in Dane County that have garnered a ranking. Ours has expired. We had been awarded a bronze level ranking, and Fitchburg is silver, and Madison, I'm surprised, is at the platinum level, one of just a few in the country. I do think we have a very good chance of being promoted to silver, maybe even the gold level, based on work that we've recently done. It's, you know, one step at a time with implementing bicycle facility improvements. So I just wanted to get your feedback as to how important this is as a work priority and timing, and whether anyone's interested in helping.
Kirsten?
Yes, I think it would be good to try to go back for the bronze. I do not believe that we're ready to go for silver. After traveling through so many cities and looking at the different ratings, I sadly don't believe we're ready to apply for the silver rating yet.
The way it works is you just apply, and then they determine what the ranking is based on a peer review, as I understand the judging. In fact, Kirsten, you've probably been involved in that, I'm guessing. So they ask local, well, I don't know how they do it this year, but that's oftentimes what they do is the national organization reaches out to people in that metro area, or that, you know, to boots on the ground, if you will.
Lisa?
Thanks. I agree with Carrie. I think it's a good idea to renew or try to renew our status. I agree with you, Mark, that I don't think this year it's going to be feasible. And I also would note that one of the things in the bronze, the report on our bronze status, one of the recommendations was to update our bike plan.
Right.
And that, I think, is dated 2009. And
so I kind of feel like,
well, I kind of feel like we should at least do some of the things that they suggested. I mean, you're right, but we've done a lot since 2015 when this was submitted. But until we update the bicycle and pedestrian plan, I feel like we would not be putting our best foot forward. So I was going to suggest during our discussion of capital project requests, putting the update of the bike and pedestrian plan on the list for 2024. And then if we can get it done fairly early in the year, we might be able to hit whatever the deadline is in 2024 to go for that status.
I like that idea a lot, Lisa, to kind of plan for it, right? So that we can kind of, if this is, I don't know, a yearly application, is that right, Mark? Maybe that's the thing, like not to rush it this year, but then put it as part of the overall plan.
That's helpful feedback. Thank you. I don't think you need a motion on this, Tad, unless, I mean, there's, in fact, I know you don't. It's just feedback that I was looking for. So I will simply say that we did update our bicycle network map as part of our comprehensive plan. So we did, it wasn't a comprehensive bicycle plan in and of itself, but we did update the network map to reflect our current bike facilities and plans. So at least that part has been done, but obviously there's more to a bike plan than that. Policies and a lot of things that we can and should be updated.
Lisa?
Thanks. Can I also mention, oh, you just scrolled past it, but one of the other keys to attaining silver status was to host a cyclovia or an open, I think it was an open streets event. I love that idea. I think that would be great to try to do for something involving Stonehorse Green, although I know there's some touchiness about closing off Elmwood. But I mean, I see that as a future activity that we could really get behind and make a big thing. And I would volunteer to work on a subgroup that tackles this project in 2024 if I'm still appointed to this committee.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other feedback from Mark? And I think we should move to item 5, bike facility maintenance. Have Kirsten talk.
Okay. So the picture that you see there is one of 2 baggies that I picked up. It wasn't several dozen, it was several hundred nails and screws off of the bike lane near Dunn's Import from Dunn's to Walla Fargo. I had reported it on, I think, a Monday right after I had seen it. And actually called in because I was on my bike and left a voicemail with Streets Division and even left my number. They did not get back to me. Tuesday it was still there. Wednesday it was still there, and continued on until the next week. And it was over a holiday weekend the following week. And so on, I don't know, the 4th I think fell on a Monday. And that day I went and picked them all up by hand and was told by pedestrians walking by that they had reported it also. And nothing was done. I did report it again, and I shot Mark a couple of emails stating that they were still there. And Mark, you spoke with Sean, I think, right?
As well as our operations manager, and I did that after your initial report.
Yes, yes. And I think that the response that you got was that the sweeper was down, and they did not know the exact location of where the nails and screws were, which I find very hard to believe, because when I left a message, I was extremely explicit on the north side of the path heading west, and gave the 2 points from point to point where they were located. So there's no way that they could have not known where this was. I think, I'm not going to make a speculation, but I think some balls were dropped here, and it isn't the first time that I've made multiple reports on shattered glass or metal shards after a car accident, and they're not cleaned up, and I end up cleaning them up. So I think that we need to have some sort of a better working relationship with the street staff, that when reports are made, that things are hopefully taken care of within 48 hours. Madison, when I report things, they're usually taken care of within 24 hours. And all of the people that I spoke to on Madison bikes said the same thing. So we're really dropping the ball on this.
Jim?
Question I had, Kirsten, did you or any of the pedestrians you speak with call the police?
No, that's not protocol. The protocol is to do report a problem or to contact streets.
Because what I'm thinking of is, if I was driving in a car and I saw nails all over the street or glass all over the street, I guess my tendency would be to call the police in that situation.
No, for City of Madison, it's always been report a problem or contacting the streets division. And for Middleton, I think it's always been the same. Am I correct, Mark?
Yeah, I have, if it's after hours, I have called the non-emergency number for the police department, 824-7300. If it's something that I feel could cause a safety issue that could lead to, harm, I have reported something that way before, so that they can pass it on, because an email, I just think that's, I don't know what happens with the report, if it's an online thing. I don't know if that could monitor that on the weekend, but I will look into that, and I will get back to the committee on how we do that.
And our report a problem form, at least I have found it to be fairly archaic compared to Madison's. It's just not very user-friendly. So I'd like to revisit that and have people look at the Madison report a problem to see if they feel that's easier to use. But Mark, the main thing is accountability. Like if we can figure out a way to have some more accountability when reports are made, especially if they're made multiple times. This shouldn't have been in the street for 10 days.
Well, I totally agree. It shouldn't have been in the street nearly as long as it was. It was, by my count, 6 days, but that still is way too long.
Well, Monday to, I think it was 4th of July on Tuesday or Monday. And then you met with staff that next day after 4th of July, and I had already picked them up.
Right. So you reported it to me on Tuesday. I just not worth getting into this. It's fine.
Yeah. And Monday I had already reported it to the city. So. Okay.
Yeah, just glancing at Madison's reported problem, it's infinitely superior to ours. Lisa.
Thanks. I was going to suggest, since Carrie and I are both on Public Works, it would be great, Kirsten, if you could share a link to each of the reported problems, because I think I've only reported a problem once, and that was a long time ago. But I would love to be able to take this to Public Works for discussion. And I totally agree, accountability is super important now, perhaps more than ever. The city's got a lot of rebuilding of trust to do with our public works, and this is one way we can start that.
Lisa, I'd be happy to. However, I'm going to be without cell service for about 10 days coming up here. Tad, would you be willing to link both?
Yeah.
Okay,
just be ready to create.
I'll be off.
I would also add this. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mark.
I would also add that Alder Kendra Wokus and I had a meeting with me today about various topics, and she mentioned another issue, a maintenance issue, which I wanted to bring to the committee's attention. The RRFB on Park Street has been malfunctioning for quite some time. And as I understand it, it maybe even goes back to last year. And it's been going off. So in other words, providing false information, causing the result being that when people see something flashing and there's no hazard, it could cause people to start not taking it as seriously. So that's just another example of when something is out there that needs to be fixed, it being addressed. So in that case, I would think it would be better to just deactivate the unit so that it's not causing lulling people into the drivers into complacency with when they see the flashing lights. We don't want that. Anyway, so I just want to, I told her I would bring that up to the committee today.
Jim?
Yeah, just to confirm that, Mark, I noticed that the other day we were coming down Park Street, and unfortunately, you see the flashing lights and you don't know if those people have already passed through, so you don't know it's malfunctioning.
The problem with Park Street, well, the Park Street that she was referring to, I should clarify, was Park Street at South Avenue.
Oh, okay. I was referring to Park Street at.
No, and you're right. And I brought that up to her as that's the one that I'm familiar with having issues. The problem with that one is that it is automated. And so what seems to be happening there, and I have observed this on a few occasions, is that you can trigger it as you're leaving the intersection. So you could have found your way into the intersection and not triggered it as you entered the crosswalk. You know, maybe you came at it from a different angle and you didn't trigger the RFB. And then as you're leaving, it doesn't know which direction you're going. It doesn't know if you're heading to the street or away from the street. And also the construction vehicles working on the creek corridor have been triggering it. And so it's been a case of where the RFB is not functioning the way it should be, and it's causing people to maybe take it less seriously. So the point is the reporting process and the response is what I'm hearing from this agenda item, how we respond to it. So we need a better reporting system and a better, more prompt response. So that's what the minutes will indicate.
Okay, and Tad, I will be leaving now. So thank you, everyone. And I apologize for the inconvenience.
Right.
Maybe,
Carrie.
Maybe the budget would be a good place to go next because it's already been alluded to as a topic, and it would be good to get your recommendation on that since we won't have another meeting before the deadline, which is August 18th.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you.
Yep, let's jump to budget.
I can't remember where the sequence that is now. Oh, it was right after the. All right, so sorry about that. There we go. All right. So may I start with this, Ted? So this, the 4 bulleted items at the beginning are projects that are identified in the city's bicycle and pedestrian plan and the University Avenue Corridor plan, one or the other, or both. We have specifically already developed a proposal, we being planning staff, have developed a proposal for extending the Allen Boulevard path. Does anybody not know where that is? I think you all, I don't need to pull up a drawing. So that's in front of Midtown Pub. From there north, we just have a sidewalk, and that path has been wanting to be extended now for forever, for years. And so we are proposing that, and the initial cost estimate is $281,000 that was prepared by Strand Associates. So that's one item. We think that that's TIF eligible, TIF 5. University Avenue, the path between Branch Street and Allen Boulevard, the redevelopment of the Castle Rock Apartments. The developers are already planning to set aside land there to accommodate that in the future, so that's good. That's listed. Cayuga Connector is something that's been on the back burner for quite some time. That is the idea of, I think what I will do is pull up a drawing that shows this. So that's the idea of connecting the roundabout at Parmenter Street and Discovery, and having a path alongside that running south to next to the fire station is where we turn off. And that's something we put in the bike plan.
Can you show us that, Mark, please?
I'm getting there. Sorry. I'm sorry I didn't have a map ready to go for that. So, do you see the map on your screen, or the photo, the air photo? Are you seeing it? Okay. So up here is the Conservancy, the Creek Quarter. So the idea would be to extend a path along the off-ramp, following the arrow, cutting this corner. It actually would provide access to what is surplus right-of-way back here. Maybe that could even be a little pocket park or something to serve the neighborhood. And then it would come out here, have to squeeze past the fire department, and it would come right out to Cayuga. So, and provide access to our downtown via path. So in other words, you could be on the Creek Corridor Trail and only have to cross one or two streets to get to downtown. You'd have to cross Parmenter Street here once, and then you'd have to cross at the signal at University Avenue. So that's something that I put in, or that we planning staff put in the bike plan 12, 13 years ago, thinking that would be a good idea. And then the Parmenter Street is simply this concept of having a path. You know, we have the path up here that goes along Parmenter from the roundabout north to Donna. We are wanting to put a path north of Century Avenue, just alongside a road, Alder Hanai Road, as you know. So what I'm proposing is that we also plan for this path to have a continuous path connecting the northern ends that is being planned with the southern end that exists. Possibly accommodating that by narrowing the lane or dropping a lane from northbound Parmenter, because it doesn't need to be a 4-lane road here. So we'd have to study how to do that. So that's what that item is. Then at the meeting on this past Monday, the Public Works Committee identified various other projects, and it's too bad Carrie left because she is here. Oh,
I decided to stay on just for this last one. So good.
Okay, can you please tell me about this third bullet point, because I was not part of your meeting and I don't even know what that refers to.
This discussion might have taken place after Carrie had to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Charles
Lisa's there too. Okay, sorry, I forget.
Yeah, I'm on it too.
I'm
Charles
sorry.
Myers, the chair of the committee, brought it up. And because Clark and Lee Street improvements were in the proposed street improvements list of projects for Public Works. And so he just asked that we improve the bike and ped facilities along that street. You know, it serves the high school. So it's very important to make sure it's bike friendly. So we didn't really have specifics other than, well, one of the things we talked about is trying to make it similar to what you see in a lot of different places where the bike lane is at the curb and then there's a parking lane outside of the bike lane, so that bikes are protected from moving cars. Using green paint, pulling out all the stops to.
Okay. So that's what that item is. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. That's helpful. The other two items on this list was, and this is one that will be music to everyone's ears, is the city has been planning now for some time and planning for next year now to prepare a comprehensive redesign of the Allen Century intersection, hopefully to get rid of 3-stage crossings, and even ideally 2-stage crossings. Then the second one is the installation of an RFB at a crosswalk location to be determined. So basically budgeting for one every year, as I understand it. Is that right, Lisa? Essentially, okay, yeah. And then I put on here also this idea from your just previous discussion about maintenance, making sure that in general, we don't just build paths and bike lanes, but that we also have devote sufficient resources to maintenance. And that can include staff, that could include making sure that we have not just money to repave a path, but that we have the personnel to do it. So I'm just, this is an open-ended item here intentionally, just to try and get your get some feedback from you. And then of course you just mentioned what was the other item you mentioned now that you wanted to have in the budget? Oh, the bike plan itself, bicycle plan. Updating the bicycle plan. So is there anything else that you'd like to see?
Lisa?
Thank you. I have a few suggestions. First of all, just looking at what's on the screen, I think when the bid goes out, for example, for the Parmenter Street reconstruction, and this is more like the mechanics of doing it rather than thumbs up or down, but if we are going to propose the Parmenter Street path between Donna Drive and Century Avenue, it might make sense to have Public Works build that into the cost of doing the Century Avenue North reconstruction of Parmenter, even though it's a different location. Do you know what I mean? Just to reduce our costs. Same thing with, well, Allen Boulevard, you could kind of roll that project into the comprehensive redesign of the Allen and Century intersection. But that's going to be longer term than, well, actually, knowing how things work, I think it would make sense to fold that into the comprehensive redesign, because it'd be nice to think that could be done next year, but I have a feeling it's going to be a longer term thing. University Avenue, that path, as useful as I think it'll be, might be premature to build that into the 2024 budget until we know where Castle Rock is going and what their schedule is going to be. And then I brought up the installation of the RRFB and was asked, well, where would it go? There haven't been any requests. And I said, well, that's something council can work out, but I think it would make sense for this committee to evaluate some locations and come up with places where you would recommend we put them in. And it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to one. We could suggest a few. And if we only have funding for one, just have priorities. I wonder, Mark, about, I was going to ask you to show a map, but we don't have to, but the stretch of the Conservancy path that didn't get paved and now Public Works is going to do it. I noticed coming out of the Conservancy corridor that the path in front of Beaverbrook is really not in good shape.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if that is something that we could propose fixing in 2024, now that the apartment building has been built. So that's another option. I like the idea of, I don't think this committee has a budget. I know Sustainability Committee has $10,000 a year to spend on educational activities and things. And I'm wondering if, especially as part of our bike-friendly community pitch, if we want to start hosting some events and maybe having a cyclovia or whatever, maybe request some funding to put towards that. And then another option is, or suggestion is, do we want to make another pitch for trying to get B-Cycle, or at least build into the budget as a capital project, gathering and analyzing data from our peer cities who have gone forward with this. And that could help us make a determination as to whether or not we want to do it. And that's it.
Kirsten?
Yes, I think as far as what has been listed here, the Allen Boulevard and University Avenue projects are probably the most important, the top two, from talking to other people who bike, commute, walk, just how many people I've seen stop on Allen Boulevard and stare, look around thinking, what do I do now? Instead of getting pushed out onto the road. They're big connectors into Madison for people living in Middleton, working in Madison, or vice versa. So those two, I think, should go on the fast track. And then regarding the RRFB, the biggest request that I have heard, and Mark has heard this from me many times too, but Marina or Dewey, I can't remember which one is further east, but boy, people have gotten so fiery about that, requesting an RRFB at that location, especially because we don't know how long it's going to take for the county and the city to fix the Allen Century crossing. And that Marina or Dewey goes right into the Conservancy.
Well, Marina, you said east. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You
east.
said, but did you mean west?
No, for the one on the creek further east, or so maybe Dewey, Marina are the same. So, yeah. Maybe Tomahawk. Yes, actually Tomahawk. That's the one, because then there's a larger gap between the lights, the two sets of lights for people to slow down. I think that we were really concerned about bunching up traffic so close to the Allen Century intersection. But at Tomahawk, it would be a little bit safer, except for that people are coming down that hill really quickly, but that would slow them down. But yeah, I really think that an RRFB needs to be placed there. And this has been an ongoing conversation. I know that Dan Ramsey and I had it for many years.
Well, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at an intersection. It could be between those two, because I'm thinking people coming down and crossing the bridge there. That might be a natural place to have something across the street. But
although at the bridge you couldn't get over, there isn't a space to get onto the path then. So it'd have to be just before the bridge or just after for pedestrians to cross over to easily get onto the path.
If we're arguing between the Dewey intersection and the Tomahawk, could I make a point?
I guess the only comment I would have is that we didn't specifically notice that as an agenda item. I think it's the way this is written is to be an open-ended discussion to have what you would like to have studied in the future, but rather than getting into the merits of a specific location, that is better served on the agenda. But I think listing this as a general need for study and coming up with an action plan to implement is fine, but getting into a debate about it is not. Sorry,
and Mark, there was a study done about 5 years ago on this with the committee.
I off the top of my head don't know which specific study you're referring to or which committee, but we can, again, we don't need to, we can discuss that separately. This is good feedback. Anybody else who hasn't had a chance to comment?
Ken?
Yeah, you know, I kind of look at these air photos that you have, and we're talking about putting bicycle lanes in, and a number of things, particularly like on Parmenter and University, where they built these new apartment buildings. And I don't know if it's a zoning issue or a plan issue, but the city's let them build right up almost to the road, but there's no potential to put any more bike lanes in. I don't know where we would approach that in this committee. But, in the long range planning in Middleton, particularly on our major corridors, and particularly this development that's going to occur on Century Avenue and Allen Boulevard, that corner new development, is there going to be sufficient setbacks to make sure that we have adequate space for bicycle lanes, pedestrian walkways? I'm particularly the one by the Middleton shores. I don't know what their plans are, but obviously the one on University Avenue across from that little shopping center by the jewelry store just down from Allen and University, that thing was built right next to the road with very little potential to put in additional crosswalks or anything. I mean, and I'm sorry, not additional crosswalks, but additional space for bike lanes. So is that something in the long range planning that the city has? Do we go to the plan commission on that, or zoning, to assure that there's spaces that down the road we're not doing triage, trying to either narrow the roads or whatever, put in bike lanes?
May I address that, Mark, since I'm the plan commission rep?
Yeah, Tad can.
You raise, Tad, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
You raise a great point, and I think everyone on the plan commission recognizes that the Kestrel building, which is the one across from Willie Street, that one did need more space, and I'm not sure how we fix it now without eating up some of the road. Not a bad thing to do. But I can tell you, with all the other developments that you mentioned, and literally every development that comes before the plan commission now, we ask that question about the ability to fit in a wide enough path to accommodate both bikes and pedestrians. So it's a great point, and I think the plan commission learned its lesson with this Kestrel building, and we do try to address it with every new development.
Thank you.
And then a comment was made about whether the committee has a budget. The answer is we do not. So this is an advisory. These will be recommendations that I will share with my colleagues who do submit budgets with their respective departments, specifically Public Works and Parks and Rec. And that is something also from a structural standpoint, Alder Hanairo, that would be good for the council to discuss, is how to translate these sorts of requests from Ped Bike Transit into action when there isn't always a clear path towards the budget process from the committee.
Lisa, you had something else?
I had one more thought, and that was, I know the city has vehicles that the staff sometimes use to go from place to place. I'm wondering, is there enough interest in getting an electric bike for staff to use to go, for example, to the mock or wherever they need to go from City Hall? Just a suggestion.
Good suggestion.
We actually, several years ago, our IT staff had a bicycle that was city funded, but it wasn't electric at the time. I don't know what the status of that is and who uses it. And I think I'm sure it was city funded. Anyway.
Mark, do you have what you need?
Yeah, this is all very helpful. The only thing I don't really have a good sense on, I mean, I heard individuals indicate their priorities, but I don't have the committee's collective consensus on what the highest priorities are. So I heard Kirsten mention that the bike path along Allen Boulevard and along University are important. And Lisa Alder Hanairo mentioned a number of interests, and I took yours to be more of a list of all the things that we should be thinking about that wasn't necessarily in priority order. Lisa, that's how I took your comment. So I don't really know if that's something. I mean, you could weigh in on what you think is the most important. So also the bicycle plan itself, updating the bicycle plan. So I guess if you as a committee would like to give me some guidance, that would be helpful for all decision makers. I mean,
Ken?
Yeah, there was one other thing which I think you brought up, Ted, and that was a while back in one of our discussions about these stoplights and these major intersections. I'm kind of thinking of the intersection of High Point and Mineral, where there's actually, before you can start on the green light, there's a time for the people to get out on the walks in case you take a right turn. You know what I'm talking about?
The LPI.
Yeah, the LPI.
Yeah, I think somewhere in that budget, the Public Works should start thinking about some of these really, intersections, particularly like on University Avenue and Parmenter Street.
Mark, didn't you tell me that was in the budget?
I don't recall.
Oh,
The LPI, the study of all the LPIs.
yes.
I did not. I told you that's something that could be budgeted, but I don't know that I told you. Well, I can check emails, but that was a while ago.
No, that was on the bike trip, I think. So we would not have an email record of it. But yes, I'm in agreement. We should have that already 2 years after I first noted it.
Okay.
Jim?
Right, about those LPIs, that was somewhere last year, the end of last year, there was a discussion about whether we should have a study of the value of LPIs.
Yeah.
And Mark, I think you brought up the fact that they do work. And so the motion that the committee made was to go ahead and proceed with the installation, recommending to Public Works to go ahead and proceed with the installation of LPIs at University and Park.
University and Park. Okay. I'll check the minutes. Thank you for jogging my memory. Let me track that down tomorrow and see where we left that. But I'm glad you brought it up because that's definitely, now is the time to incorporate that into the budget. I think that was the general discussion we had last year. So, okay. So I have Allen Boulevard bike path. Updating the bicycle plan was a new concept, and it seemed like several people were interested in that. Study, and that would be done through the planning department, so that would be our budget submittal. So I will suggest that to, I will share that with my colleagues here. Allen Boulevard bike path is a TIF funded, so that'd be capital, or that'd be planning department as well. The study of the LPIs would be Public Works Committee making that, or the Public Works submitting that as part of their budget. What else would you like me to prioritize for next year? I heard Kirsten mention the University Avenue, but that's going to that's a huge project.
How did the members feel about at least exploring B-cycle for Middleton?
I'm up for it.
I'm good with it.
Good with it if there's somebody that's going to use it.
Okay. So I'm adding that to the list too, is
and Mark, I really like the Cayuga connector. I wasn't so convinced of it until you showed us where it was going to be. I think that's a great, especially since it would connect the Creek Corridor to the downtown. I mean, I know it's already connected through Parmenter, but this also brings in, you know, people coming from the west.
This is our plan from, there's actually a whole section on it in that bike plan, but it's shown in green here. Okay, so I will put that. It sounds like that's a little lower. It's after Allen Boulevard, and well, I'm not trying to.
Yeah, the reason I brought up the University Avenue path as maybe a lower on the list is simply because if it is near or if it includes the property that right now is proposed as the new Castle Rock development, I just feel like we might be getting ahead of that. That's all. I recognize its importance. I just wondered about the timing.
Okay, well, this, I think that's, how do you feel about the RFP, just budgeting for an RFP in the future? Having asking Public Works, oh, that's already going to be included in their budget, I guess. But endorsing that. I'm seeing nods. I guess I didn't. Okay.
Mark,
Okay.
can you share a list? Have you typed up additions to the list? Because I'm happy, if you need a motion, I'm happy to make one.
Sure. Let me just make this larger. I'm having some formatting issues right now. There. Can you see the list?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that it's got all the, so it's got the Allen.
What does LPI stand for? Left?
Leading pedestrian interval. I want that one to be nice and high priority because yes, we did in November say we did make a motion to tell Public Works to do it at every intersection as soon as possible. And we have not heard back.
Okay.
I believe.
What year was that, Tad?
Last year. That
this
was
after the budget. So the problem is it came after the budget cycle. So
Okay.
that's why, and I appreciate this discussion. That's why we're having this discussion to prioritize or make our, have the committee endorse a set of priorities for next year.
And could you take the word study out of that?
Yeah.
And put installation of the LPIs?
I like that idea. And the Public Works Committee will meet before the August 18th deadline. And so Carrie and and Kendra, I'm sure would be, Alder Wokus would be interested in this. So we can bring that up as in addition to the Public Works other projects.
And just identifying funding sources where they readily come to mind.
And Mark, instead of endorsing RRFB, I would say endorsing the 3 Public Works recommendations that we just, because I think we endorse all of them. The Allen Boulevard or Allen Century redesign and the Clark and Lee Street project.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. And then the maintenance concern, I know that though that's a separate agenda item, but that may lead to some discussion of how to prioritize that, fund that. So I assume that will carry forward with your discussions, Alder Hanairo, as part of the budget process. Just making sure that prioritization is in place to respond to these concerns.
Yeah, I would think that should be folded into and emphasized in the Public Works operations budget. And one of the things council is going to have sometime this year is a presentation on the idea of a transportation utility, which is a newer concept for funding all types of transportation expenses. And that I think would be the need to better maintain our bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and transit facilities is a good reason to consider pursuing something like a transportation utility. Well, if you'll show your other list, then I'll move that the committee recommend to, I guess, the Finance Committee and Council the priorities, the following priorities for consideration in the 2024 budget.
I'll second it.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it.
I show 7 people present now, by the way. Oh no,
Yep.
6. Sorry, 6.
6.
I was counting myself. 6 is so you still have a quorum.
Still a quorum.
And I hope our vote does not preclude the committee also making a request for a small amount of dedicated funding to do something like outreach events, so we've got a budget for that.
If that's something
After you discuss with your colleagues, Mark.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's a Stone Horse Green issue. It's a tourism issue. So I will mention that to my planning colleagues who, Abby in particular, and then tourism, I think there's some opportunities there too. That can also be guidance when you meet with tourism as part of the budget discussions, their presentations, that's something you could flag for them. That would be a good place to do it.
Mark, would we need a separate motion to cover a budget since we included those specific items?
I'll just, I mean, well, how do you want to handle it?
I was just going to say the finance committee we can add something. I chair the finance committee. So when we're discussing all the various budget items, we could add that in without needing the committee's endorsement. I think it would be understood that the committee would endorse that.
So what's left on the agenda is 3, 4, and 8. 8 is not essential.
And 9. But 9's not necessarily essential either.
I mean, it's not impressive, what I meant to say.
No. Let's do 3 then.
So I had an issue come up this afternoon, so I don't have my transit stuff ready, but let me just see what I don't think I had anything in the packet today. I'm just going to display our spreadsheet. All right. Well, I'll just talk about it in general terms anyway. So we have obviously new transit service in effect. I have made some observations of the system. My coworker Daphne has actually ridden it to work within Middleton, which probably makes her the first city employee to take the bus to work. And it worked well based on where she lives. She's on the northeast side of the city, and she actually lives near up by Highland Way, and is one of those people for whom the bus is not direct to downtown, but she boarded the R2, and then took that down Branch Street, and which then eventually goes west on University and then south on Park, and then she had a few block walk from Parkwood Shopping Center, basically City Hall. So, essentially was a 5-6 minute walk. And then going home, she took the F, which at the corner of the fire station here, and then took that and then walked from CVS to home. So that was 6-7 minute walk. I digress a little bit. So the point is, we've been watching how people are using the bus and have noticed a couple things. The council authorized up to, was it $100,000, Lisa, for bus stop improvements. We are planning to redeploy 4 bus shelters that are currently sitting at stops that aren't being served anymore, and then purchase 6 additional shelters. They approved a plan for where those would go. We are we're tinkering with the plan a little bit based on property owner discussions where I'll pull up the map for that. For example, which way am I going? For example, we're having some difficulty getting consent from MG&E to put a bus stop or a bus shelter at this intersection with Park Street and High Road and Century. So we may, this is all MG&E owned, even though it looks like there's vacant lots here for development. This is all MG&E owned. So that's an example of where we are in discussions and are not sure exactly what's going to pan out. I've also been reaching out to the owner of this property, Mr. Ziegler. There's a bus stop here in front of the Hardee's, this little thing. There isn't room to put a shelter here. So I've reached out to him, and the council approved an easement that he needs to still consent to, but verbally he consented to it. I have not heard back from him if he's going to sign the document, but we want to relocate the bus stop here. So without going into detail on every one of these, the point is we're having some discussions, but we also have more time because the city's contractor who does the sidewalk project originally was going to start in mid-July, but is not starting until the end of August or early September now, due to other workload that the contractor has. So we do have a little more time to do it right, if you will, to come up with a concrete plan, if you will, no pun intended. So that was not I was not setting that up. So and then Tad, you had talked about having a ride along at some point of the new service. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yep. When do we want to ride the new service? So the idea is that we would meet in roughly the same spot. Well, at the same stop we met at the first time, which is the stop right in front of the pumping station at Marshall Park, and then we'd ride the F. So the question is, would we ride the F all the way to Junction Road, very far down in Middleton, or in Madison, or would we turn around in Middleton? That's one question. The other question is just timing. Who wants to go and when can we go?
I'd be interested.
Okay, Tom's on board.
Depending on when it is, I would go too.
So yeah, that's a good point. So when do you want to plan this? What day of the week? That would be a good thing to discuss.
I'm very open in terms of when I can do things. I will be gone the week of August 13th, but that's really my only constraint.
Would this be mornings or afternoons?
Do we want me to just pick a time and then everybody says if they can come? Or do we want to try and coordinate with everybody?
I think in the interest of public access, aiming for evening like you did last time is evening is better than a morning. I mean, you can always obviously as individuals go and monitor the bus on your own. I do have passes, I should mention. I do have some passes that I can share so there's no expense.
Yes, I would tend to do afternoons too because I work from 9 to 5. The society is generally understanding, but I don't necessarily need to go skip out on bus field trips.
What about the 23rd, 24th, or 25th? Well, the 25th Good Neighbor Fest.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be prepared to join you for any of those days because of that reason. Sorry. Like maybe August 30th.
August 30th.
That's a 5th Wednesday, so that's it's safe to say that Alderman Nairo does not have a meeting that day. Although actually I've heard some talk of a committee well, that would be on a Tuesday then. So yeah, the 30th would probably be available.
Well, I couldn't do it, but because I have a concert that night and then I leave for Chicago the next day. What about the 9th? Or no, Tad's gone the week of the 18th.
Well, Wednesday the 9th would be our last. That's another thing we should talk about. Our next regularly scheduled meeting would be Wednesday the 9th. And given the hour, I mean, maybe that's something you want to, well, the Middleton Pedestrian thing we should still talk about. But
wouldn't our next scheduled meeting be
Thursday? It would normally be Wednesday. It would be normally when. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Thursday. Yeah, Thursday the 10th. Sorry, I've got too many committees in my head.
I can do Wednesday the 9th.
Well, or you can combine it with your committee.
Or we could combine it with the committee meeting.
Like do the meeting on the bus?
No, I didn't mean it that way. I just meant the time slot.
So that is true. In the past, we didn't do we did it on a Thursday at, what was the 70s schedule? It was the 5:40 or something.
Yeah.
The F is a little different.
Well, just, I mean, let's not worry about that much detail, but I think
Okay.
the date, you know, the day of the concept of, you know, maybe that would be a good day to aim. And if there's any other business to, you know, maybe we can meet in person. You know, we'll figure that out, Tad. I'll work with you as the chairperson to
Okay.
plan, but maybe the 10th is the best. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. No, I'm leaving town that afternoon. I'm sorry, I can't do the 10th.
Okay.
Going to a wedding in Canada.
How about the 9th or the 7th then?
Okay.
Wednesday the 9th or Monday the 7th.
Either one's fine with me.
I can do either.
I think I'm good with either.
All right, we will, Tad, I'll finalize it with you and announce it.
All right.
Early next week.
Sounds like a plan. All right.
So I think that's all the only other thing I was going to mention under this item is that we also have based on observation, have seen people transferring from the R to the F in front of CVS. And so I have reached out to the property owner. I tried to reach out to the property owner CVS, and it's not possible to reach the people. Someone out east, and the manager of CVS doesn't even know how to reach him. So we don't have any contact. But I happen to know the person who owns, John Casper, who owns these two buildings, and she's willing to have the bus stop relocate, shift west 125 feet, and provide a space here for a bench. Because I've seen 3 people transferring here. So it actually is good to have the bus stop a little bit away from the intersection anyway. So I just wanted to let you know that's one of those things that we're tinkering with. And, you know, so Lisa, just so you know, there's some minor edits to the plan, but not the overall intent. I mean, we're honoring the intent. So I just wanted to mention that. So go ahead, Ted.
Item 4, request for yield to pedestrian sign.
This is a request from, oops, not too far. Oh, I did have a memo for bus stop improvements. Good. Okay, here's the cover sheet for this one. So several years ago, the committee worked with the city engineer to identify locations for RFPs. They wanted to have some sort of prioritization rationale for where these are placed. We've now have a request from I think someone at the high school to place RFPs at these 2 locations shown in green. The orange shows the existing location by the aquatic center and the tennis courts. So Sean Stowski asked me to run this by you.
Can you clarify if you mean RFBs or yield to pedestrian signs?
I yield to pedestrian signs. I'm sorry. You probably all know what they look like. Hopefully we have an example of one here.
Now, were they talking about the aquatic center or the south parking lot? I thought they were talking at North and Bristol.
Correct. I was just referring, the orange is just the existing location.
Oh,
and
okay.
green are the proposed locations. I made this map just from what my understanding of the request. And I mean, I think this is a good idea. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic at these locations, especially down here. Well, both of them really. So Sean just wanted this to be on the record with a committee to endorse it. cost is pretty nominal.
Any input?
Yeah, Middleton High School teacher.
Jim?
The input, I think, on Bristol will probably would probably be a good idea. The traffic there is terrible. I mean, you've got a four-way stop at Franklin and Bristol, and then going up to Lee Street there, you don't have anything else regarding pedestrians. So I think it probably would, the sign there would make sense. The other one, the recommendation at Maywood and Park Lawn, I don't know how much, if any good that would do. That road has sort of become a alternative to Branch Street to get up from University up to Century. And the cars really tend to race along there. But, you know, if the expense is nominal, it certainly, I suppose it certainly couldn't hurt. Even though you do have that other yield sign up at the tennis courts, and you have the RFB at the bottom of the hill for the Conservancy.
Well, ironically, there's somebody in the crosswalk here as this Google Street View. I think Lisa has her hand up, Ted.
Yep, Lisa.
Thanks. I have no objection to the putting these signs where recommended by the teacher. One other place that I would like to be considered is on Pheasant Branch Road before and after Gaylord Nelson Drive. There's a sign to indicate you're coming to a T intersection, but it's kind of at the top of the hill, right by the bigger parking lot for, or I'll say the southernmost parking lot for Pheasant Branch Conservancy. Yeah, there aren't signs. At least I'm looking at Google Maps now, and I drive on this, and I haven't noticed the signs. But I think that's a really.
I thought I saw it earlier this year, but I guess if it's gone, it's gone. You would know because you live right there. So there's supposed to be one there. I do know that they sometimes get damaged and hit, and I don't know what our backup supply is, but I'll look into that for you.
And I will double check to make sure they're not there, but the last time I checked, I did not notice them.
All right, so it sounds like there's support for that. Oops, that's at the bottom. So are you endorsing it then? Is that what I'm hearing? Just trying to move the discussion along here.
Do we need to move to endorse?
I think Sean officially referred. I mean, I don't remember if it was a committee referral or how it got here, but if you wouldn't mind just giving the committee's support or denial, whatever you wish to do it formally, that would be good.
How about a motion to install yield sign at North Avenue and Bristol and at Park Lawn and Maywood? And Lisa, did you have one more there?
Yes, and Pheasant Branch Road and at Gaylord Nelson Road.
Well, yeah. Okay. It should have been plural signs. I guess I didn't say where the locations were. The intent was to just discuss these two, but as I noted, there should be one at Gaylord Nelson and Pheasant Branch. So I think we just need to follow up on that administratively, Lisa, to make sure that one gets put back there. So that doesn't need to be.
And when you say there should be one, Mark, I do think it's, since it is at the top of a hill that you can't really see as you're driving up, I think it would be important to look at putting them on both sides of that intersection.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up on that with, so you're saying you want 2 up there total?
Well, traffic does go both ways.
Well,
when you're heading north, you're coming around a curve and then heading up a little bit, and then people come speeding from the north to the south.
So we need
there you
4.
go. There's one. I mean, I guess first of all, the crosswalk's only on the north side, it looks like, anyway.
They're double-sided, are they not?
Yeah, they are double-sided. So.
Okay. I thought we were talking about actual signs that would be there permanently in winter as well.
No, these are I guess I should have put a photo of what we meant in there. These are the ones that Sean is talking about. This is a pretty minimal, this is not these are there seasonally, basically. They don't stay in the winter because of snowplow, but are you saying you're interested in seeing something permanent? If there's going to be a sign permanently mounted, then I'm sure Sean would say it should be in a medium.
I'll talk to Sean separately about that.
Okay. Yeah, I can guarantee you that he would say that, because the medians are. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. It's Park Street over here. So that would be an example, I think, of how, if there's a permanent sign, what Public Works position would be. And I should note that these get hit periodically. Jim, you probably know that. You see that on your walks.
Yep. And snow plowing becomes a real problem in the winter.
So what I found for the motion was, or what I recorded for the motion was, that Jim is moving to install these signs at North Avenue in Bristol, and Park Lawn in Maywood, as indicated in the packet. But I didn't hear a second.
Still, I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next would be either 8 or 9.
You're the chairperson.
Mark, are you up for talking about it?
Sure. I'll be brief. I mean, a lot of this is just, this was a recent experience that I had in Fort Collins, Colorado, and it's self-explanatory what was in the packet. But I just was curious about your reaction to what was proposed, what I saw specifically, and what they've been working on there. So I was there in June for doing a big bike ride through the mountains, and spent a day riding Fort Collins bike paths. It was 80% of my 50 miles was probably on paths. It was quite impressive, actually. And also, by the way, they have what's called an active modes plan, which serves as their bicycle plan, and that's actually a model. I thought we would maybe go in that direction. I wish I'd thought of that earlier for our budget discussion, but I think the planning staff will take your recommendation regarding the budget item and translate it to this, frankly. But not to get distracted by that. So I saw various facilities and specifically signage that I was interested in, that I thought you would be as well. So this two-way crossings, when you have a path alongside the road, like the North Mendota Trail, then this is just another visual cue for the drivers to look both ways. A lot of people aren't used to looking to the right when they're leaving a stop sign, right on the sidewalk. I liked their trail signs, the etiquette signs. We've talked about that over the years at various times. starting with Penny Klein and then with Matt Amundsen as our public lands directors. They've tried various types of etiquette signs. I really thought these were very well done, very appealing, visually appealing, very simple to understand with the graphics and the text. And I liked also the advisory speed limit on trails of 15 miles per hour. They can't enforce that directly, but it is something that, it's part of their education. This is a kiosk that they had periodically at strategic locations around the path network with the same signs. I didn't share with you my favorite sign though, which was rattlesnake crossing or rattlesnake area. That fortunately we don't need those here. And then I also asked about green pavement markings, and they gave me some feedback there. And I've not followed up on this since then, but I do want to continue to follow up and develop an approach for the city here. That's been on my to-do list for a very long time. And then the last theme I touched on this trip in my follow-up discussion with Fort Collins staff was this notion of how they handle these underpasses where they are along water bodies. And the reason why this interests me is because of our plan for Century Avenue underpass at Branch Street. So I wanted you to be aware of this. I mean, I thought you'd be interested, I should say, and welcome any feedback or discussion you have, especially regarding the signage.
Any feedback for Mark?
I just wanted to thank Mark for sharing this with us. And I would love to see some of these, I won't call them innovations, but some of these elements incorporated into the design for Parmenter Street reconstruction and any other, major reconstruction that gets done. I pushed a little at one of my first Public Works Committee meetings to incorporate some of these things like the green paint. But I can try again because I know they're still working on the design. And on that subject, I guess I would just say I feel like the city is in a place where now that we have a complete streets policy, it should not always be the case that the Ped Bike and Transit Committee has to push for things or ask for improvements like this. It should be understood that we need to start making changes like this in order to implement our complete streets policy. And so I hope the members of the committee will feel and see that shift in attitude taking place within council discussions.
Just a little thing I appreciated in the feedback right there where you happen to be, Mark, where Dave Kemp is talking about the design of the intersections being key. And what he's stating there about bending the crossing in from the roadway to allow the vehicle queue space, that's international best practice. I feel like in Middleton, we have a tendency to say international best practice, but has it been tested? And so to see this actually coming from another city, hey, that's helpful.
Good. Do you like the signs, the yellow sign idea?
I do.
Okay, because I have, as I mentioned, some budget with the North Mendota Trail. So I'm not saying I'm trying to spend something just because I have the funds, but the focus, of course, is safety when you have a two-way path next to a road, just trying to minimize the risk of collisions.
Yeah.
So if you like that, I will research that a little further. And I really appreciated the signs. They didn't have the green crosswalks as much as I kind of thought I would find there. They do use them fairly liberally, but you know, you can see here that there wasn't one at this location. It's a lot cheaper to just put in ladder crosswalk, the standard white. But anyway, all right, that's all I had. I mean, I did, if there's any other discussion, you can always email me individually. The last item was, I think, just number, this
one. Last item is to discuss the format of future meetings in person or via Zoom. Any preferences? I will say,
I'm here only because there's new committee members. That's why I thought you might want to discuss.
Yeah, I will add, I prefer Zoom, as I work from 9 to 5, and if our meeting time is going to be 5, I will make it, but it is not optimal. Jim?
Is there any consideration for hybrid meetings? It is probably not going to be practical for me to, depending on the length of the meeting, to attend an in-person meeting, but I see value to them. The other thing, and I had mentioned this to Mark at one point, is I think Zoom meetings allow for much greater participation in the committee, because you would have people, with a meeting being at 5 o'clock, if somebody does not own a vehicle, they would have to come up with some other means to get to the meeting if they weren't within walking distance. If you had somebody who, let's say, had childcare issues or something like that, they might not be able to participate without paying for a babysitter. So I think Zoom meetings allow for a much greater representation of the city.
Lisa?
I will say I can do whatever the committee wants. In my experience, either in person or all Zoom work, those formats work better than a hybrid.
Music to my ears.
Any other comments?
I'll just say that there was a couple instances tonight where people had multiple things going on, and by doing Zoom, they were able to participate in the first half and then move on to their second. If we didn't have Zoom, they probably would have missed it.
That sounds like a combination of no preference plus strong preference for Zoom to me. All right. I think that remains our plan then.
Yeah. Thank you for the feedback. I think we were all supposed to, our staff were supposed to be asking that question, and I wanted to do it because of the new members. So.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Do we have any further staff updates?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any future items that we'd like to see on the agenda?
Got to get my hand up here. Yeah, I got a question. Is where in any of the committees in the city of Middleton does the handicap parking issues come in? And particularly handicap accessible areas and everything else. Is that with our committee, or is that with another committee in the city?
I think it would be Public Works.
Okay.
Or building inspection. Are you talking about on-street accommodations?
On-street
Sure.
accommodations, yes.
So the committee, without going into detail on this because it's on the agenda, but we have discussed it briefly. We discussed it earlier this year, and I'm working on a plan with our engineering staff. I'll just leave it at that. And then, so it falls into the purview of, I mean, I think it's appropriate to have it here. So I will give you an update at a future meeting. How about we leave it that way? Update.
Lisa?
I was just going to suggest that we follow up the ride that the mayor and this committee hosted with another event, maybe later towards the end of summer when we have a good chance of it being not screamingly hot. But I really got a lot out of that, and I think with more publicity, and now with Pheasant Branch being all repaired, I think this is a good opportunity to do some educational events that Mark can then document in our application for silver.
I appreciate your optimism about the silver. Thank you. And then the other question is what to do with the August 10th meeting. Unfortunately, I will be traveling that day. The intent was to meet 2 weeks ago, and then again August 10th. It doesn't mean, I mean, I could ask a colleague to fill in since we are trying to establish the regular meeting date. So if you want to meet, I can, we'll find ways to accommodate that. Right now, I don't know of anything pressing that would be, since you got through this whole agenda tonight. I don't know of anything that needs to be on the agenda in 2 weeks. So I'll just leave it at that. And I'll work with Tad. The point I'm trying to make is that we really are trying to establish a regular meeting time, and the second Thursday of the month is really what we're trying to aim for. So if it wasn't for my error last time, it would have been. Okay.
I would opt for finding a staff member to fill in for you.
If necessary, yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. And if there's nothing for the agenda in working with Tad, we'll cancel it.
Oh, I can always find stuff for the agenda. Any other things anyone wants to bring up right now? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I don't know who made the motion. I didn't see, but
I believe that was Ken making the motion.
Okay.
And Dale seconding.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
You.